we as humanity can do almost anything that we imagine. That is why next week, I will send to Congress a bill that will make Bitcoin a legal tender in El Salvador. In the short term,
El Salvador's Bitcoin law wasn't supposed to work. The rollout was messy. But 4 years later, El Salvador now has record tourism, foreign investment, and somehow a lower crime rate than Sweden or Canada. But then, one morning, the law just vanished. No press release, no public debate, just a quiet revision to the legal code. But on the ground, something didn't make sense. The government was still buying Bitcoin for itself, conferences were packed, and expats kept flooding in. Was the law just for show? What happened to Bitcoin City? IMF pressure them? Where's the Bitcoin People office? Still use volcano bonds, geothermal mining? Did Bukele really pull the plug on Bitcoin? We're here to find the answers. And it all starts with the people who left everything behind to be a part of the experiment.
Hi, I'm Max Kaiser. This is the Kaiser Report. Only 1 day to go before the 9th birthday of Bitcoin.
It was January 3rd, 2009, where Bitcoin was first mined.
This is Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert, two broadcasters turned Bitcoin diehards who were preaching it back when it was trading under a single dollar. Today, they help run El Salvador's Bitcoin education efforts and even advise the president. But back when they first arrived, they were just as confused as everyone else.
You know, the thing that really made us fall so in love so fast was how negative the press was about El Salvador. When we first came here, we were told that if anybody's going to be kidnapped, it'll be Stacey and Max. So until that moment, I didn't know of its reputation as the most dangerous place on earth. But he said that, and I Googled it, and I was like, what are we doing? Why are we going there? This is crazy, I'm not going there. We showed up, and I was very confused and felt gaslit already when we first arrived. I was like, how are they so nice, and yet the headlines say it's the most dangerous place in the world? You know, I was already intrigued immediately and pulled in into there's a story here.
You know, there's two jobs, promoting Bitcoin and also creating a perimeter to keep out the shit coins. We went to visit El Salvador, we met the president, we explained to him what he needed to do to become Bitcoin country. And he said, why don't you two guys move here and be my advisors? So that's what we did. One of the biggest successes we've had in the last year was to create the El Salvador's Bitcoin Reserve, putting it up on the mempool sites. You can see this every single day, full accountability.
So this is where the Bitcoin smash buys happen from.
No, not right here.
Another big success, really, and this is really entirely Stacey's doing, is all the education projects that have come out of the Bitcoin office, like Kubo Plus, which is really an advanced class. We canvassed the entire country to find there's only maybe 21 kids at the high school level that passed this kind of preliminary test to get into this elite program.
The motto of the Bitcoin office is excellence only. President Bukele had said that in the Independence Day. He told people, you know, I've provided all the security, we're a safe country now, and now it's your turn, Salvadoran people, to move to the front of the class. In the Enlightenment, you had the concentrations in Paris and Edinburgh, where you had these men thinking certain philosophical thoughts, and they all started to converse and work together and be together and think together. And I thought we could do the same thing here. This is El Salvador's moment. They're at the right place at the right time in the course of history.
All right, excellence is a good tagline, but let's be honest about Bitcoin education in the country. 90% of Salvadorans didn't even touch Bitcoin in 2023. Only 1.9% of remittance payments to El Salvador were done with Bitcoin, and the thousands of government-funded Bitcoin ATMs, they still exist for now. If El Salvador was really serious about excellence in education, I wanted to see some tangible proof, and boy, did we stumble upon it.
This is the all-new National Library of El Salvador. This is one of the biggest public development projects ever in the entire country, and they put it up within a matter of 2 years. We're gonna go check it out. Can I just say how impressive the architecture is here? And I'm not for El Salvador, for anywhere. There's so much going on, even on one floor. You have a whole section where kids are playing Lego and doing video games back there. And then over on that side, there's a book club.
And no, the book club wasn't reading the Bitcoin Standard. I checked. But they did slip a Bitcoin book for 6-year-olds into the kids section, which I'll admit is a pretty long game move.
They have Mario Kart over there. That's unreal. don't know what that has to do with the library, but I'll take it.
I think it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's very hopeful. Libraries are generally a symbol of knowledge, and that's what they're giving back to their people.
The sense of optimism here is electric, right? You can feel it everywhere you go. I really only look at Bitcoin and what we've done with Bitcoin. That's my policy contribution, but the security situation is hard to separate out from that transformation of them as individuals.
Once crowned the murder capital of the world, President Nayib Bukele ushered in an unprecedented crackdown on crime. An uncompromising zero-tolerance policy towards gangs. Whatever you think of the policy, one thing is undeniable. It's changed the way that people carry themselves. The Salvadorans we met moved with a new kind of confidence, like a weight had been lifted. For many, this isn't just about feeling safe for the first time in their lives. It's about reclaiming pride in who they are, or experiencing it for the first time ever.
Yo dejé de tener ese trabajo, ese negocio por lo mismo, por las pandillas. Porque cuando se enteraron que yo comenzaba a distribuir, a vender cerveza a domicilio, me comenzaron a pedir la renta. La renta es una cuota que vos les das diario, semanal, mensual. Yo por el mismo nerviosismo, porque amenazaban a matar a mi familia, a hacerme algo a mí. Y cuando tú mirabas, venías por la carretera y mirabas de repente en una colonia que había un muerto, en una colonia, ¿y por qué lo mataban? No sabíamos. Porque no había pagado la renta, porque de repente lo vio mal alguien de las pandillas y le cayó mal, lo mató. O sea, se convirtió en el emblema para poder vivir tranquilamente en El Salvador.
We were in Switzerland, and these Cuba Plus students who had never been on a plane before, never been out of the country before, who are very shy. And their whole life they've been told that they are the worst murder capital of the world, and they pretend to have a different accent than Salvadoran because Salvadorans were looked down on. And this young student, was asked, "Where are you from?" And she said, "El Salvador." And it was like, "Oh, El Salvador! I hear so much about it. It's great. Your president is incredible." And they're like, "What? All this shit's real?" Like, they were suddenly the star. Like, until that moment, they didn't believe it. So when I saw that, I'm like, wow, that was the payoff. Like I'm watching a flower just like burst, like from a green shoot. The colors just go bam. And they're full of confidence, and they want to take the mission further.
Bitcoin. El que pega primero, Isabel, pega dos veces. Entonces, el hecho de quitarle que sea una moneda de curso legal, simple y sencillamente vuelve en El Salvador. Entonces, en lo personal, creo que siempre va a ser Bitcoin country. ¿Te vas a acordar de mí? De 5 a 6 años más, va a haber más adopción de Bitcoin aquí en el país y más empresas que van a aceptar Bitcoin aquí en el país. Yo estoy seguro.
All right, so Napo's all in, Stacy's all in, Max might be more all in than Satoshi himself.
Come over here and say that.
Stand up! Yeah,
To them, El Salvador is still Bitcoin country, law or no law. But if that's true, what's with all these headlines? Despite Bukele's big Bitcoin dreams, El Salvador still has bills to pay. Mega prisons, security crackdowns, shiny development projects, real-world stuff that still costs fiat. So when the country needed a cool $1.4 billion, it turned to everyone's favorite international loan shark, the IMF. And the IMF came with strings attached. No more legal tender status for Bitcoin, businesses don't have to accept it, you can't pay taxes with it anymore, and the government has to wind down Chivo Wallet, the app it once launched to onboard the whole country. Which really ruined my dumb little punchline.
Look at that, Central Bank of El Salvador, Chivo ATM there. In other words, what can be, unburdened by what has been.
But why walk back the Bitcoin law now? And why for just $1.4 billion? If Bitcoin country is going to survive without a legal crown, it has to be more than a government project that can be turned on and off at the flick of a switch. It has to come from the freaks, the outcasts, the ones who frankly don't give a about the rules.
So what are we off to? What are we doing right now?
We're going to Berlin. But I have to tell them. It's the last day that I'm gonna be 27. Tomorrow's my birthday. And I'm excited because we're gonna celebrate with Bitcoiners.
Hey, you got past 27 club. Well, actually, you have 24
No.
hours to not die.
What if I die? Julian's driving is questionable. I can understand.
Driving's questionable?
Yeah, it's freaking questionable. The roads are bumpy. We almost died.
Alright, we did it. We are in Berlin.
Yo, but honestly, no, those roads. Well,
Berlin, and no, not that Berlin, is sort of like if someone took Bitcoin Beach, stripped out the surfboards and influencers, and left only the off-grid solar panels and the paranoid expats.
hey, look, it says run nodes. Hola!
Okay.
Hello? Hi.
This is our digs.
Nice, the Bitcoin standard.
Everything's priced in sats, so beer's 2,000.
Oh, wow.
We're right at sunset here in Berlin. We already got an invite to go try raw milk for the first time. Are you excited?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Let's go.
Yeah, because when we moved here, there wasn't actually many people here. We were before the gangs had been locked up and everything. We were here when the mass murders were here, and yeah, and Berlin supposedly wasn't affected by the gangs as much as other parts of the country.
Oh, wow. How many Bitcoiners are here?
Well, we've kind of lost count, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I think since the adopting conference, a lot of people have been coming in and hanging out. And
Buenas tardes. Toda la familia va.
Está neto.
Vale, ahora que está.
you guys want a bag as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buy milk for Bitcoin.
There we go. Yeah.
All right, good to see you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sweet?
I thought it was gonna be like very different texturally. It feels like almost drinking like cream. A little bit. Alright, it wouldn't be a real trip to a mountain town in El Salvador if we didn't hike an actual dormant volcano. We're gonna go do that, and we're also gonna learn about the history of the town while we're at it.
Qué placer, mucho gusto.
Yo también me ha encantado mucho el día.
¿Sí?
This is Don Julio. He's lived in Berlin his whole life, and he's not just leading us into a volcano, but into a version of El Salvador most people never get to see.
What'd you get?
I got 2 bracelets. Studying the sides, you gotta.
I don't think I haven't touched Fiat this whole time.
I haven't touched Fiat either. Are you our guide? So the thing is, we need to go with the dog because if the dog doesn't want to go in, we're in a seismic place, then we can't go in because that would be dangerous.
The dog picks up the vibes.
The dog picks up the vibes.
I figured we'd hear a few casual Bitcoin stories from Don Julio, tourist payments, maybe a transaction or two, but what I didn't expect was just how deep down the rabbit hole he had gone.
Entonces, necesitamos con urgencia que Bitcoin sea usado más y mejor para darle a nuestro país un mejor rumbo económico. Puedo comprar desde la sal, que es lo más básico para la cocina, hasta el chimbo de gas. Puedo comprar maíz, frijoles, arroz, aceite, todo lo que yo necesito para mi casa lo puedo adquirir con Bitcoin. Bitcoin es importante, pero es más importante guardarlo. Entonces, si lo guardamos, podemos tener un pequeño patrimonio económico a futuro. Si el dinero empieza a hacerse menos, empieza a tomar más valor. Y eso a futuro nos conviene. Vaya, ahora por favor quiero que ponga su mano así. Disfruta el... Es que, vea,
That is the sweetest lime I've ever tasted. Don't need no Pfizer up in these woods, man. Nature's medicine.
Whoa. Oh, hey there. This isn't El Salvador. This is Canada. I tried my best to recreate it. But if you're looking for a real reason to go visit Bitcoin country, there is no better time than January 30th to 31st, 2026, where the sponsor of this video, Plan B Forum, is hosting their flagship Bitcoin conference in San Salvador. 2 days of talks, educational seminars, networking, exclusive announcement, top-notch food, live music, and thousands of Bitcoiners from around the world. Tickets are starting at $99 for the pure ticket and as little as $21 for Salvadoran residents. And yes, you can pay with Bitcoin. If you've ever wanted to experience Bitcoin country firsthand, there is no better time to do it, and Plan B is finally your excuse to go book that trip. Tickets are selling out fast, so get them over here and then come see the wild side of El Salvador that we're about to explore next.
We are descending down the volcano here, and we've just been given a warning that there's a plant that releases a pheromone that makes you dizzy if you inhale it too much. And the only antidote is putting some pee near your nostrils to, I guess, counter the smell.
Nostrils or eyeballs?
I don't know, man. Isa, how do you feel about this? Did we sign up for this?
Honestly, if Julian has to pee on my nose, I'd rather get disoriented. Not gonna lie. So.
I won't bless you with my valuable urine. Woo! We are inside of a not live, but feels pretty live volcano right now.
Mi conexión con el Bitcoin inició cuando el señor presidente aprueba el uso de esta moneda digital y nosotros vimos una nueva forma de hacer negocios que nos facilitaba la vida a través de cifras exactas y podemos guardar un poquito para el futuro. Con esto de la adopción del Bitcoin están viniendo personas acá a Berlín que tienen ese deseo de vivir la emoción, de visitar estos lugares, de vivir esta aventura. Entonces he tomado a bien servirles como guía y mostrarles lo que es nuestra tierra, con sus colores, con sus aromas, con sus sabores, porque hay plantas y frutas en el camino. Diría yo de esa manera que ya no solamente somos amigos, sino que nos hemos vuelto como hermanos a través del Bitcoin.
Bitcoin! The dog right now is freaking out because he thinks that the volcano is going to erupt. How do you feel?
Honestly, pretty chill.
How I got here, I have to thank Justin Trudeau. As we all know what's been going on in Canada, things are kind of weird. I just didn't like the way the country was going. But even before all of that, before COVID started, I wanted to change and I was looking at different countries to move to and just sort of have a little bit of an adventure. I was already interested in Bitcoin and working in that space. When Bukele announced the legal tender law here, I just decided right away that I'm going there. And as soon as I got here, I just fell in love with the place. There's an energy here, there's something really special. The climate's nice, and there's an instant community. There's a really amazing community of expats. I just stayed, and I'm pretty much gonna stay here, I think. The town itself has kind of a maverick vibe even before Bitcoin. They kind of reject a lot of large structures, whether it's government or banks or anything like that. It's a very rebellious spirit, and that kind of comes through. And it's sort of logical that they adopted Bitcoin quickly from the ground up. It's not from the top down. It's very, very sort of grassrootsy.
Where are we right now?
We're at the Bitcoin house in Berlin.
There are local people and also people from Canada, from United States, from many countries. This is the classroom because here at the end it is not only Bitcoin. For example, I have been learning English here for 9 months.
What's the trick? How do you convince someone to accept Bitcoin?
I just can say that if you had the opportunity to learn about Bitcoin, do it, because Bitcoin is a way to overcome the different challenges that life has for us. 1 year ago, I didn't believe that something like this could be in my city. I didn't believe that I could learn English. And also, I didn't believe met people from different countries around the world. It's like wonderful because there are so many experiences, many cultures that you learned.
Guys!
So there's this just old school sense of community that it's hard to find that in Canada now. You know, if you live in a condo in downtown Toronto, you take the same elevator, for 10 years and you don't know the name of the person in the next apartment. Here, I walk around and everybody knows my name and I know something about their kids or their dog or whatever. There's challenges here to life, like it's not very comfortable, but those things really outweigh the sort of straitjacket of living that very, very sort of rigid, modern sort of big city Canadian life. You need to at least come and see the alternative in action. If you're single and flexible and mobile and you're working remotely, just leave. You can just put your stuff in storage and just say, I'm going down for 6 months for a trial. That's what I would say.
What do you think now about them kind of pulling back or sort of repealing the Bitcoin law? Do you think that's going to affect the amount of Bitcoiners that come to Bitcoin country?
Maybe a few, but I mean, we don't need permission from a government to use Bitcoin. I mean, yeah, the IMF's very powerful, so we can all just imagine what happened in those, those private discussions. But for us, we're just like, well, that doesn't matter. We love it here, so we're staying. We're spending Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. We don't need permission. It's very simple.
Berlin gave us that something real we were looking for. Freedom, connection, and a Bitcoin economy stitched into the hills like it was always meant to be. But in some ways, this was supposed to be the floor of El Salvador's big Bitcoin dreams, not the ceiling. Wasn't Bitcoin country supposed to get a Bitcoin city?
A Bitcoin city. Bitcoin city.
Bitcoin city.
Bitcoin city.
Bitcoin city.
Bitcoin city.
A big, glowing techno metropolis at the base of a volcano shaped like a coin powered by geothermal lava magic. This was going to be El Salvador's big billboard urban living sales pitch to prove that it was truly all in on Bitcoin. But 4 years later, it hasn't gotten a single permit. So we went looking for what really happened.
All right, where are we right now?
I don't know.
You don't know where we are?
No.
We are about to embark on a journey to a future Bitcoin mining site. We're meeting up with one of the engineers from Volcano Energy.
El Salvador is so small that you can be in the volcano, in the city, and in the beach surfing tonight, all in one day.
All in one day. Let's go check out some mining.
Yeah, the country is fun-sized, and that's kind of the problem. Bukele wants El Salvador to be the next Singapore, a sleek, innovation-fueled hub in the heart of Central America with 800% more volcanoes. But turning that into reality takes energy, like actual electricity, not just vibes. The good news, 62% of El Salvador's current electricity comes from renewable sources, like solar, hydro, and geothermal. The bad news, it's got some of the most expensive electricity prices in all of Latin and South America. 20 cents a kilowatt hour? What? That's like one papusa every time I play Mario instead of reading a book at that library that definitely has too many video games.
It's called being locked in. I heard that El Salvador now can produce 100% of its own electricity. Is that correct?
No, not entirely. El Salvador has the capacity to cover their consumption, but they still have a lot of fuel oil-based plants. Let me give an example. In Central America, we have the El Niño, so there was no rain from a long period of time, and it affects the water-based hydros. and El Salvador has purchased their peak necessities of energy from Guatemala.
And I know what you're thinking. What about all these volcanoes? Don't they have all the energy? Well, we asked William exactly about that.
Geothermal, you cannot do geothermal anywhere. You can install a solar panel wherever you want. You can build a huge solar plant in 12 months. And you cannot do that with geothermal that easy. It takes years to the studies and the construction.
Drill too deep, you get earthquakes. Drill too sloppy, you get sulfur burps straight from hell. Oh yeah, and it takes 5 to 8 years just to break ground. Private investors would rather yeet their money into the volcano and call it a tax write-off, which is why it usually falls on governments to fund energy projects. But remember El Salvador's new $1.4 billion IMF deal? It bans any public funding of Bitcoin-related projects. So if investors aren't going to fund Bitcoin City's most basic electrical needs and the government can't, what other options are left? Maybe the answer is a protocol that can pay its own utility bill.
You know, every inch you walk, you have sun. So if you don't have the capacity to consume all that energy in industries, in houses, you can do something with that energy. Mining is an option, right? Volcano Energy, which is the company what I'm working with, it's about to invest $200 million in El Salvador in projects. The idea of this test plant, it's to test technologies such as bifacial solar panels, integrated inverters. So if you're going to install 1 megawatt of mining, you should install 2 megawatts in available energy to supply mining without affect the market.
Hold up, did you catch that? They're overbuilding their electrical capabilities on purpose. And that, right there, is what every headline about Bitcoin and energy completely misses. You know the ones. Yeah, those ones. Bitcoin mining doesn't steal power from people, though. It pays to build the power others won't, at least not yet. And when you've got that kind of buyer, you can finally justify building more power plants, way out in the middle of nowhere, years before the grid catches up for your mega city project. But it's not just a solution for all the Bitcoin bros who want to live next to a volcano. It's a solution for how to get all electricity prices lower across your country. A reason to build out before human demand is there. Maybe volcanoes aren't the play quite yet, and maybe Bitcoin City never broke ground, but it did bring the attention, and Bitcoin mining brings the economics, and this solar and hydro plant, it only exists because of both.
That's right. That is thinking outside the box. Do the combination of these two in the same facility, it's a hit. It's the perfect combination. When you have rain, you have an excess of water. When you have sun, you have excess of irradiation, you have a reduction on the water availability. Think different, it's the difference.
Everything we saw, from education to circular economies to energy, proved that Bitcoin doesn't need a law to survive in El Salvador. It's alive in the people. But still, something doesn't sit right. When the Bitcoin law passed, it wasn't just a financial experiment. It was a statement, a rejection of central banking, banking cartels, and debt slavery. 3 years later, that promise feels a lot more fragile. Since the Bitcoin law, El Salvador's national debt has grown by over 40%. The government that once stood apart from the IMF is now celebrating billion-dollar loans. And quietly, the Bitcoin law itself was rewritten. No public votes, no national conversation. It's hard not to notice the pattern. Big announcements, big headlines, and then slow erosion. Here's another example, the Chivo Pets Hospital, a veterinary center built with the profits from El Salvador's Bitcoin stash. Cheap, high-quality, 24/7 pet care in the heart of El Salvador's capital. A symbol that Bitcoin's success could fund real public goods. And then, all of a sudden, last month, shut down. Bukele first blamed thousands of negative comments and local corruption for his decision on the closure. But just days later, after massive public backlash on Facebook, he reversed course, calling the comments bots and promising to increase the hospital's funding instead. In the end, a major public institution's future was decided not by policy, but by one man refreshing Facebook. Coincidentally, all announced 72 hours after he had signed the IMF deal. Look, even the most steady of leaders can make hasty decisions in the heat of public pressure. A small slip-up over a pet hospital doesn't erase the very real progress Bukele has delivered. But moments like this do force a harder question. Can a movement built on decentralization survive in a country where the fate of everything still depends on the will of just one man? And as it comes to the Bitcoin law, was it ever about deep adoption? Or was it just a branding exercise?
The rebrand is not just superficial. When an individual who has been hiding, afraid of their neighbors for their whole lives, suddenly you can say who you are till the Bitcoin law, right before the security situation. Nobody had property because it was always going to be either stolen by the corrupt governments before or stolen by the gangs. And now that you've given back some, like the essence of being a human. It's like, that's the most extraordinary gift that has ever happened in hundreds of years.
En el 2023 me detectaron cáncer de tiroides. Esto nunca lo he dicho, pero en realidad amigos bitcoiners, la operación era muy costosa, yo no la podía costear en ese momento. Y amigos bitcoiners reunieron entre un grupo, ellos reunieron y por Bitcoin me operaron esto. Si yo no hubiera estado esto, tampoco me hubieran operado de cáncer. Pero ahorita estoy bien, todo va bien, estoy libre de eso. Por eso es que les digo, Bitcoin para mí es todo. Bitcoin me ha dado amigos, me ha dado familia. Entonces, para mí, que alguien venga a decir, o sea, a Bitcoin cuando te ha ayudado, a mí, totalmente.
First visited El Salvador, it was a bunch of expats. There was like no locals involved in Bitcoin. And one of my favorite things to see here, especially working at the hardware store, is that we're consistently seeing more and more Salvadorans come and ask us questions, and then we can point them in the right direction to get more education.
One of the reasons that locals are coming in more right now and over the past 2 months is because you might have seen that the law has changed due to the deal with the IMF. One of the parts of the deal was that Chivo needed to either be shut down or sold by the government. Locals are kind of scared. They're like, I started with Chivo, I have my money in Chivo, what do I do? And where do they go? Where people direct them to, which right now is either My First Bitcoin or the Bitcoin hardware store. I love it, it's the next generation of Bitcoiners, and that's what we're here for, education and giving people those tools to buy and use Bitcoin.
If Bitcoin was not legal tender and this wasn't known as Bitcoin country, I probably wouldn't have looked at El Salvador to make that move. I don't have a safety net down here. It drives me to make a life for myself, set goals that I think will propel me further in life, and I've just met so many cool people along the way that my life keeps getting better and better